Good evening. This is the Design Review Board meeting for April 13th, 2021. First order of business, I'm going to provide some instructions. So welcome to tonight's meeting. If you are attending virtually via Zoom, there are a few guidelines I'd like to mention. Everyone is muted and your videos are turned off by default to minimize any disruptions. If you would like to make a comment during the public hearing portions of this meeting, please raise your hand by clicking on the icon labeled participants at the bottom of your screen and then click the button labeled raise hand. If you're calling into the meeting on a phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 on your keypad. Once the moderator calls your name, please unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone button on the bottom of your screen or by pressing *6 on your phone. Okay. All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and if everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Right, I'd like to introduce our staff and board members. I'd like to start on my left with staff.
Robin McDonald, a zoning manager.
Shubha Jangam, Senior Planner at City of Milton.
Reed Casey, Bethany Road.
Charlie Roberts, Freemanville Road.
Laura Wyson, Crooked Creek.
Lee Collins, Westbrook Road.
Beniquis Palmer, Canterbury on the Lake.
Jeff Dufresne, Summit Road.
Okay, if I could get somebody to make a motion to approve the agenda for this evening, as long as there are no modifications to the agenda, if somebody could make a motion.
I move to approve the agenda for April 13th.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right.
Hey, Madam Chair, I think that Mr. Roberts had asked for a guest to come up and speak really quickly before we get into the agenda, the heavy-duty agenda. So
Okay.
if you can come up, ma'am, to the, and introduce your name and number and name.
Hello, I'm Dr. Michaela McKenzie, and I am purchasing 815 Mayfield Road. I am a dentist, a biological dentist, and I'm looking forward to being a member of your community and helping being an active participant. And I love Mayfield, and I live just around the corner, so glad to be here.
She inspired me as we worry about our historic old buildings and whether to rehab them or save them. I talked to the doctor about how she felt about her building, and give me a little bit more about how you feel about the building in that little district.
It's a historic landmark, and I'm very honored and proud to keep its heritage alive. It's important to me that we remain and honor those beautiful buildings that can never be replaced. They are unique and wonderful, and they make a city a city. So I have already gotten a historic name for my property, and I'd like to keep it historic. And my goal is to preserve the history of it, the trees around it, and to maintain it and make it part of the community. And so when people drive by, they can look at it and wonder, wow, look at this beautiful old house. And it's in really good condition. So I love it. And I'll be putting a lot of flowers around. And I love the horse part of the community too. So I'm going to have pictures of horses in there, which I love.
Well, I have pictures. You sent me pictures of you riding horses.
That's
So
right.
You're
Just
a
around
horse
the
woman
corner. Yeah, Fortitude
in a
Farm.
horse city. So it's really pretty neat. We lose Tim Bryan, the architect who was there 15 years, and we gained the doctor and a dentist and a horsewoman, and she loves her building and wants to keep babying it and taking care of it. And right there with Milton's and the florist next door, it's just really great.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
For your time. Thank you.
Welcome. Yes,
Welcome to the community. Thank you. All right. If there are not any modifications to the March meeting minutes, which I don't think there were, if we could approve the March meeting minutes, if somebody could make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the March meeting minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. All right, we're going to move on to our demolitions. We have 2 demolitions for this evening. The first one is, address is 15245 Birmingham Highway. This was deferred from last month's meeting. If the applicant could please come forward and let us know what you're doing with this property.
Hello again, I'm Austin Lineberry, general contractor, owner of New River Building Company at 375 Maxwell Road, Alpharetta, 30009. This is my 3rd appearance for this property, I believe, maybe 4th. We're on our final structure to be approved with you fine folks to be demolished. Just as a recap, you should have your packet there, but this is a property that this family owned at 15245. They acquired the northern property and had a desire to combine the properties together. If you recall, there was an old house on the north property. We got a variance to be able to tear that down. There was a dilapidated garage on that property. You approved to tear that down. So now we're on to their main home where they're living now and seeking approval to tear down that smaller structure as we move towards building the forever home. I brought additional copies of what you should have in your packets, but does everybody have the photo of the home?
Mhm.
If necessary, I also have the combination plat with me. Just other supplemental information if there's anything else you need. But again, this is the 3rd structure on the 2 parcels that we're going to seek to be combined. We have a meeting later in the month with the council to do so. So is there any additional information that I can provide you to support your decision and approval to remove this structure?
And when are they planning on starting construction?
Yeah, so I guess I should use the term in the relative near future. I think there's still some assessment with the climate of the market and what's going on with lumber and different things, economic factors. But the desire is to do it in the near future. We don't have a definite date, but that's the goal.
I would just, my suggestion would be, once you tear that down, if it's going to be a period of time, just make sure that lot is mowed, taken care of. There's some grass on there.
So as part of our approval, they actually want to inhabit the house and stay there until
okay.
there's a transition period, because the other home it's distanced enough away that there's separation for safety. And so they'll want to stay there till we get to a certain point.
Okay.
And then make that transition under the agreement with the city.
Okay.
But
Sounds
yeah,
good.
I understand your suggestion.
Are there any additional questions for the applicant? Any comments from the public? Okay, well, I think we're ready to take a vote on this. If somebody would like to make a motion.
I make a motion to approve the demo at 15245 Birmingham Highway.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
All right, our second demolition case is 2865 Webb Road. If the applicant could come forward.
Evening. My name is Jeff Walker. I'm with Foresight Group, 3740 Da Vinci Court in Peachtree Corners. We are civil engineers. The project is to basically build a new daycare facility. So the demolition request is to demolish the existing building. It is simply a one-story ranch building that is in fairly poor condition. There is a modular classroom that is behind the building. Of course, we want to demolish that as well. Any playground equipment, the parking lot, we want to demolish it all. It's a 1.3 acre tract, very rectangular in size, and we're looking just to demolish it so that we can build the new daycare facility.
And when are you planning to start construction?
As soon as we can get approval from you.
Okay.
So we're ready to go. We've been working with staff now since before Christmas of 2019. We are close with our LDP permit, so we're ready to go.
What's happening at the aerial map, that orange, yellow highlighted box? It looks like it's in the back end of the property. Just curious.
Can I see that, please?
So that's an additional piece.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for this applicant? Any comments from the public? Okay, would somebody like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the demo at 2865 Webb Road.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
We are now going to start a couple of courtesy reviews for this evening. It looks like we've got 3 on our agenda. Just to clarify, a courtesy review, the Design Review Board does not vote. We provide input to the Board of Zoning Appeal, which they do weight our input, but we do not officially vote on these particular items. Our first courtesy review is V21-08. That address is 120 Doris Road, and the request is to allow an accessory structure to be constructed in the front yard. If the applicant could come forward, state your name and address.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. I'm Scott Reese with Brumlow Reese and Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia, 30004. I'm here tonight representing the Rogers family in their application for a variance to allow an accessory structure to be constructed in front of the primary building or primary residence on their property. Okay, so why am I not having success here? Okay. Wonders of technology. I think I triple clicked. So I'm going to start out with the site plan, hopefully. So you'll see before you the property in question. The existing residence is tightly hugging the rear property line or the rear building setback line. Really no room to do anything per the ordinance as far as placing accessory structure on the lot. You'll also notice a stream bisecting the property and an additional stream that that heads with a spring head on the property. Between the building setback, the stream buffers and the impervious setback, and the floodplain, the buildable area along with the extremes in topography, we're very, very limited on where we can place a structure. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what we're dealing with on the site plan. So the Rogers purchased the property in April of 2020. The existing residence was there, and this is Fulton County imagery from, I think this is 2016, 2015. You'll notice down in the lower right-hand corner of the property, there's an existing building that was there. So historically, there was a building on the property. It was damaged with a storm, a tree fell on it. The previous owners removed that structure, but when the Rogers purchased the property, they were told by the previous owners, oh, no problem, you can build a structure in the front, and just based upon them having the structure from the past. Wow, we are really clicking here, aren't we? Okay, this is an aerial of Doris Road. If you'll notice, the properties highlighted in red, these are properties that have accessory structures located in front of the primary structure of the residence. So it's common practice on Doris Road. You've got estate tracts of property, and you have either barns, feeding sheds, tractor sheds, all sorts of buildings that are in the front yard. So it's a community standard for this area. Just wanted to share with you that the applicant is not asking for something that's not common on their street. So this is street view on Doris Road. You'll notice the gate up at the property. There's the existing drive that was there for the previous structure that was removed. You can see kind of where it was padded out, the trees removed. Just trying to give you an idea, if you haven't been there, what it looks like. Again, you can see the existing conditions there where the structure is to be placed. The elevations for the proposed building, we're going for a rural barn look. Front elevation. This is kind of a representation that they obtained from the design manufacturer. Note on this building, it may appear this is metal. We've been in discussion with the Community Development Director, City Architect. The applicant has agreed that the exterior structure or the siding per se will be a fiber cement type. Don't really want to give the common name because we don't want to tie it to a particular side, but I think we're all aware of that. And we, in our application before the Board of Zoning Appeals, we will put forth that the structure will be conditioned for review with the city architect for color and siding materials along with window and door placements. So I hope I've given you a synopsis of what we're attempting to do, why we're here for the variance. I feel like, the tenets that are set forth for requirements for variances, that we meet all of those. We've got odd-shaped piece of property with latent problems. The existing location of the house prohibits putting one behind it. It's in keeping with the community. You know, many of the properties on Doris Road have exactly this situation. And the proposed structure is replacing a structure that was there before. And the design, we're trying to stay in line with the rural Milton outlook. So that's what we're seeking. Any comments that would enhance what we're trying to do, I guess that's what we're here for. So if I can answer any questions, I will try to do those. Thank you for your time.
So what's the use of the structure gonna be
It's
for?
mainly storage.
Okay.
You know, the location of the house and the drive kind of prohibits maybe pulling a trailer or anything. So, but it's storage.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So on that black and white or blueprint that you had on here, it looked like that was a roll-up door, metal roll-up door. Doesn't look like the image that was portrayed in the barn colors. which is a
Right.
better looking
You know,
building.
this is the base plan that, that's the stock that you order. So that's why I wanted to kind of enhance or bring forth that the final design will be with Bob, but it's going to be more, this is more, the structural design as far as the footage and all. So I'm going to ask you to look more at.
Well, I would just think that this location, especially on Doris Road, it's a beautiful road, they've got an opportunity to keep it dressy, right? I think the city architect can help with that.
Yeah, and that's one of the, things I wanted to try to, help you guys see that we're not looking to put one of the roadside carports on there. So,
But I do realize there's a great hardship on this property, so I think that it's about the only place you could put it, it looks like.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, and that road, you're right, it does have a lot of that look. And I know this discussion we've had in CPAC meetings about, bigger properties having front structures, so.
yeah, if you have an estate, as my grandfather used to tell me, son, the more stuff you have, the more headaches you have. So with extended acreage properties, you're going to have upkeep and maintenance, and you need a place to keep your stuff.
Here's, Mike, I have a concern.
Yes.
And I agree with everybody's comments that out front, Doris Road, equestrian. But we have a long history the last 2 years of riding rings becoming repair automotive shops. Milton is really hot. Everything's selling. A lot of our long-term residents are selling. And we had a lot of metal buildings in the past. We don't want metal buildings in the future. So I'm all for where it is and having it up front and the big properties that everybody said. But I'm not okay with no architecture. We're the design review board and we have nothing here. And so I'm gonna really ask why we don't have any drawings of what you're really gonna do. And I have trouble saying, oh yeah, we're for this, send it on to the variance board without DRB ringing in on the architecture.
I guess maybe in the past I would be a little more or in agreement, but I really think that with our community development director and city architect, that there are safeguards in place that with conditioning it, that it be reviewed and approved by the city architect, that I think that should diminish your concerns about that this a structure being placed there that wouldn't be of Milton standards.
Bob, what's your thought there? I've said for the last 2 years, and I'm in a lot of municipalities, and this one's one of the easiest to get approvals with no plans. And in other municipalities, that wouldn't work. even though they have city architects. What's your thought of no plans? And we've said for many months, we want to see these plans when these developers turn in, and we're being hard on numerous cases right now that we want to see their architecture. And we've held them for a month or two till they got that done. And I think it's a bad precedent to have an applicant say, oh, we're going to handle that with the city architect, when we've got cases tonight that have been postponed for 2 months and they're being required to get their architect.
for approval.
Yeah.
Yes,
Just a matter of whether
that
we
lets
want
me
to
go
do it.
forward.
Right.
That,
Yeah, it needs to be conditional. So, I mean, our recommendation is that there needs to be a condition that, and frankly, for a lot of this stuff where we're getting the front, we need to have a different process. I think if CPAC's going to make a recommendation that ends up, you want to do these bigger lots, which is what I'm been hearing, those owners are most likely going to want front structures somewhere in the front, and we need to be prepared to look at those to make sure that we're getting the same look and feel from those roadway byways so that it looks consistent, not like what Charlie said. I would agree with that. So then we're going to make them all conditional. So it's either we change the process or we make it all
Well, that's-
conditional.
And I'm fine with that. I'm not, trying to, it's just, this is an individual building an accessory structure, and to ask them to go to the nth degree before they know they can build it
Yeah.
is a little bit cart, horse, cart. But once they know that, yes, you have the ability to build a structure, the structure is going to be conditioned. You're not going to be able to build, it's not going to be a unsightly, it's going to have standards. And I have no problem whatsoever with anyone, that seems to be a very logical process.
Yes.
well,
So my suggestion would be that we, if, from what I'm hearing, we're all in agreement that we're okay with the site location for the accessory structure. What we want is a variance that says we want to see and approve that design before it actually gets constructed.
Yes.
and it even worries me, the word, as we work on these, and we're seeing more and more of this kind of stuff, accessory structure could be a tool shed. A cute barn out on Doris Road is something else that enhances the neighborhood versus just a tool shed.
Yeah, I'm just parroting the ordinance back.
Yeah.
And that's Milton's verbiage. And if we have a problem with that, we just need to change the
Right.
verbiage.
Or
Yeah.
we need to have architecturals that'll then define what's going to get built.
Well, in the future, it should be easy enough for them to, and we have had it before where these accessory structures, think the one across the street,
Mhm.
accessory structure that was brought for us, and they just had some images of some, what I remember about it, images of what they were going to build.
Yep.
Could even be a couple Pinterest photos, just of some sort of accent to paint a better picture would be helpful.
Right. And like I say, we know to get the permit, the building permit, that process is they're going to have good elevations and good structural. But I'm trying not to go cross that bridge for a denial.
Mhm.
As the chairman said, I think we're in agreement. Let's
Okay.
move on.
All right, yeah,
So,
Scott, so we'll.
Hopefully, everyone understands the recommendation is that approval with conditions for design criteria.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Scott.
is it to come back to DRB with those drawings?
Yeah, we're asking for special requests, and the BZA will always give that to us. If we agree with it, they will.
Really should be that we could, if that delays somebody another 30 days, that we could have a subcommittee go out and approve that.
Yeah, we could.
Shouldn't we?
We could, yeah, we could do that, yeah. Yeah, because we don't want to delay. I
Right.
mean, But we could do that. Okay, our next courtesy review is case RZ 21-07. The address is 14140 Freemanville Road. And this request is to rezone from AG1 to CUP for 6 single-family houses. So if the applicant could come forward, state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Ledbetter with Engineering 303, 108 Allen Street, Cumming, Georgia, 30040. I'm here on behalf of the applicant asking for the rezoning. It's a total of 9 acres. There's currently an existing house on site. It is a group of families, excuse me, moving here from another state. They would all like to live in a compound of sorts. They would like to add 5 additional lots to the property for a total of 6.
Bob, staff, does anyone have any comments on this before I go to the board?
Okay, so I just want the board to understand a little bit, because we haven't had a lot of CUPs come in front of you recently. So the CUP is a rezoning that would then allow the applicant to reduce yards, required yards, in this case, the front yards. So instead of the 60 feet, they're going on some of them to, on the AG1 one. On the other one, they're going to, what is it, 25? Just check, make sure I get it right. They're reducing the front from 60 to 20 and the side from 25 to 10. Basically, this allows them to bring the dwellings closer to the street. So they're still keeping the rears.
Bob, can you speak up? I'm sorry, maybe I'm just having a hard hearing.
Okay,
Maybe it's this
so
huge plat
what they're
front.
doing is, it's a CUP, it's a rezoning. And basically what it does is it allows the applicant to reduce the required yards as part of the rezoning from, in the front, from 60 to 20, and the side yards from 25 down to 10 to each of the lots. So the reason, honestly, the reason we haven't seen a whole lot of these is because the council always feels that CUPs can increase density because some of the lots might not be buildable with the, with the standard zoning requirements. And then the CUP would then allow some of the houses to be shifted, allowing those houses to then be constructed. So in a sense, I guess the argument is, are we really increasing density by doing that? Because if you didn't do the rezoning, would you still do it? So part of the rezoning requirements is to show it both ways, under the standard AG1 and then under the rezoning of the CUP. There are lots in here that are very steep slope in the back. I think it would make it fundamentally a little bit harder for them to construct. They might say we can still do it. They might say it's not worth doing. So I guess that argument exists to some degree. And but they did show it both ways, and they were trying to demonstrate that they wouldn't be increasing density by doing it, by capturing more lots.
So I guess I'd like to know if there was any public comment on this particular case. Yeah, I thought there might be. Yeah, there's a couple people back here. I guess I would like to hear from them before we have a discussion with the board. So if we can get them to speak, that would be great.
We'll go ahead and announce them.
Yep.
I'm sorry, can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
I just wanted to point out there's a proposed private street in the middle, and the goal is really to pull the homes that'll be there more to the center of the property and away from the exterior. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Robin Dameron. You can.
Right in the way,
Okay, you have to come up here, give your name and your address.
Okay. I'm Robin Damron, and I live 2 houses down from this proposed. I live at the corner of Freemanville and Phillips Circle at 14260, right across from Red Road. I have 5 horses, 4 German Shepherds. Moved there 11 years ago. I lived in Alpharetta 16 years, and I just moved down there because we were getting horses. Thank you. So, anyway, I was trying to cram my time here. So I'm just going to say thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening. And for those of you who don't know me, as I said, I'm Robin Damron. I'm actually one house away from the property going north on Freemanville. There's the house at 14140, then the Hubbard family, and then myself going north. And I'm here to voice my opinion on the rezoning. I'd like to respectfully submit a request to the Planning and Zoning Committee and the council to deny the requested variance. I'm not in favor of selling off to larger parcels to developers for smaller lots and smaller homes. Smaller homes on parcels in that area are totally out of character with the existing homes, which sit on larger parcels of land. It would be a loss to our rural sense outside of city proper, that atmosphere, rural Milton. I truly believe in the Milton residents who are really trying to retain the rural character of the community, and selling off the large parcels just detracts from the character of our wonderful little town. But I do have some questions. I'm interested to know some things. Should this variance go through, exactly, is there a time length on the building? Say like if the developer gets the property and then does he have a specific amount of time that everything needs to be completed? Because I was wondering if they just say, oh, you know, houses, you're talking about 6 houses, it's gonna take a while. But suppose, and I mean, I haven't even checked anything on the developer, but it's like, suppose they start developing and then they decide, oh, we're running out of money, or this isn't a good time or whatever. So does the rest of that go stagnant? That concerns me. I don't know. I just have that in the back of my mind. Like, how long, is there a time period? Because I don't know anything about building and planning and commissions. I also have a question. Is there going to be a homeowner association there? Because the homeowner association will be the governing body to keep things as they should actually be maintained in such an area. And I have a concern about the detention pond. That's the reason why I'm asking about the homeowners association, because I got in touch with an engineering firm to better understand detention and retention ponds. And a dry detention pond are usually best used in areas where there are 10 or more acres of land. And on smaller sites, they said it's difficult to control the water quality. Homeowners associations are usually those responsible for maintenance and any repairs necessary for a detention pond. And they said, yes, they can bring rodents, mosquitoes, snakes, and occasionally stench. I'm personally concerned, aside from the fact that it's going to take away the rural look right there on Freemanville, all the lots are large. I'm concerned about the loss of privacy near my home, the loss of trees. The developer's going to come in and clear cut everything. They always do. And then they're going to plant, I'm sure, beautiful trees, but it's just not the same. And we have so many deer, rabbits, we have everything there that is just going to, we have birds that nest in the trees, hawks, everything. And that's just going to go when you clear cut land. Development, they call it progress, but so the loss of trees, noise while everything's being built, dust and dirt from the dump trucks going in and out, nail guns, and I don't want a neighbor close by to me. I bought there, I was a mile away, and I bought there specifically because I was on that road where it was wide open. Now they are presently, they've just completed a home across from me on Red in Freemanville on the corner there. They've just finished a home and they're putting another home on that parcel where at one time they were going to put a school, and we came and talked about that. And I can tell you from my yard, my little house sits on 7 acres. And inside my home, with the doors closed, I can hear the dump trucks because they go in, and when they dump it, then they slam it down. So I hear that. My horses take off running. I would hope that they would be used to it by now. And also right across, I guess it's actually Wood Road. If you go down Phillips and turn onto Wood, they're building houses back there, same thing. So my horses, and I have 4 German Shepherds, and they are definitely traumatized with all that. Traumatized is probably not a good word, but you know. And so I have a question. What would prevent a homeowner that would purchase a home in there, maybe from starting a home-based business? That's something to think about, because that would bring in people in and out there, maybe traffic, I don't know. I'm not talking about an auto repair shop, but still, that would bring more people in and out of there. Suppose they built an outbuilding, like what are the specifics as to what can and can't be built there? You know, you can't have horses there if it's a subdivision, so they're not gonna have a barn, but, you know, maybe they might build an outbuilding and they'd have a college student staying there, and then when they go off, they can rent it out. I mean, I don't, you know, I don't want like a multi-family thing living in there, you know, one home that might rent it out, like the bed and breakfast or whatever. And what law actually governs the construction of the houses? Like, could the developer actually decide to change plans and offer homes on a half or 1/3 acre lot after the fact? Like, is there a deed restriction? I don't know this, so I'm just asking. That would place conditions on the developer that'll be recorded in real property records, that he's got the land, he bought it, and now he says, oh, well, you know what? I think we're gonna do half-acre lots instead of 1 and 1.5. So is that the spec that is there? Is that like cut and dried by law that's gonna be approved? Or is there ample opportunity for them to say, we might want to, you know, change this just a little bit? I have a question with regard to that. I said about the raccoons, rabbits, and wildlife hawks, and I'd just like to know, that this goes along with what I just said. Is this 100% binding request to absolutely build as is on the specs? That's where I was going to with that. And let's see, I said I used to live about a mile away on Hopewell Plantation. I've lived in this house now 10 years. The noise coming from the houses that they're building across the street. The engineering firm told me the disadvantages to a dry retention basin, that when water comes in there, it essentially could be a mosquito breeding ground. I guess they put something down in there with the dry, and the water just from rain and runoff goes in there, and then it eventually filters out. Like, where's that filter to? We don't have sewer, so is it gonna go into our streets, or where does that go? And, you know, who's gonna be responsible for maintenance of that? Making sure sediment and debris that is gonna go in there, I mean, dust blows or whatever, you know, it's gonna eventually back up. Who is the homeowner association going to say, okay, we have 6 homeowners here, everybody's gonna have to put up so much money, and we hire somebody to take it? I mean, that's where I'm going about homeowners. I lived with a homeowner association, and so you know, they're good, but, you know. And let's see, I was thinking this as a compromise for the owner, as opposed to, well, let me just say, something enforceable to prohibit resale or development of the parcel in a way that would not be consistent with maintaining the rural character of our community. So that, is there a regulation that'll go to further homeowners in there? If someone's living there for 5 years and their husband gets transferred and somebody else moves in there, you know, is something going to be a list of rules that would say, okay, you can't have a home-based business or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
That's a question
And a lot of the questions you're asking are zoning questions. I have 2 other people that want to speak, but we
Okay.
can quickly address your zoning questions. City staff can tell you how the cup works, and
Okay. I just said one more thing and I'll leave you be. I said, as a compromise for the owner, rather than developing smaller lots, because one of the lots is going to back up by my property, I would suggest a different arrangement. It would be to replat the parcel to contain less homes, but on larger lots. A replat would decrease the number of lots available, but the increased size and quality of the remaining lots would result in similar land value to the owner. It would retain the rural character if there were 2, say, 1 5-acre and 1 4-acre, and a nice big house on each, as opposed to, and it would retain the rural character of the street, still match market demand for larger homes on larger parcels. Denying the variance for smaller lots doesn't deny the property owner a reasonable rate of return. The sale of the parcel as it presently exists, if they were to sell 9 acres with 1 large home, it would most definitely still yield a large return. And of course, it won't be the maximum income benefit from a developer, but I just think it's not going to be good because we don't want a lot of density of homes. We want to keep large lots, 5 acres minimum. So anyway, thanks again for listening. I appreciate your time. Sorry, I'm
Thank
not
you.
so professional.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Anybody have anything to say about that?
Yeah, and there were 2 additional speakers, I thought, I saw in the back. Yeah.
Well, thanks, everybody, for hearing me out tonight. I don't have a lot of prepared notes. You did a great job, by the way. I'm here to speak in denial of this for a number of reasons, not in any particular order, but we own a small horse farm on Freemanville Road, which is just up the hill from where this proposed project is supposed to be. Cars routinely come up that hill at 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. And we're very concerned about an accident, somebody pulling out of one of those, let's say they put it in, pulling out of the front of the subdivisions. I mean, routinely, there's accidents at Phillips Circle, Red Road, because people are just going too fast. So we're concerned about the traffic situation in terms of accidents and that kind of thing, especially if teenagers are learning how to drive, that kind of thing. I got a plat in the mail, but honestly, it was so tiny. I looked at it with a mag, really had trouble seeing it. But if you're not familiar with that plat around there, it all slopes away. And now when we get heavy rains, that wooded area all around there acts as a filter for that water. So it percolates into the ground and eventually down into, I think it's called Chicken Creek, which is down farther from your house. So we're concerned about that. Where's all this runoff going to go? I mean, developers got to make money. I get that. But they put a big mansion next to us and they faced all the downspouts toward our farm. And I had to go through the extra expense of fixing that drainage. So I'm concerned about that too. The other thing is, obviously the wildlife, right? We have large herds of deer, turkey, everything like that. And they live over there. I know who the owners are. He and his wife, they probably see them all the time. We're concerned about them, all this loss of habitat, because we're eating away at slowly every month. And we'd like to see that stopped. And the other thing is, what are they going to do with all the waste? I'd heard that they want to put in a communal septic system or something along those lines. We're very concerned with that, especially if that's the case, because you've got a homeowners association, you've got 6 families, the residential, the big sewer thing backs up. Oh, it's not my problem. It's you caused it. There's all that kind of thing that has to go on. So if they were to put it in, we'd like to see individual septic tanks for each of the 6 homes, not some big sewage tank that I think they're trying to propose here. And just in general, keep in mind as you prepare our town, and Charlie, your name's Charlie, right? That was great what you said before about the plans. I work in the financial services sector. If I ever came to the board without plans, they would just kick me out the door, just that quick. So that's part of this too. And I can't speak for any of my neighbors, but I'm going to assume that most of them really don't want a subdivision right there. It's really more for either another little horse farm or somebody who's got the financial acuity to purchase that thing at the going price. But that's the major concerns that I have about this going in right now. So I want you to keep that in mind as we move forward. And thank you very much. That was the extent of what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any additional speakers?
No, not for this.
Great. Thank you. If the applicant, oh wait, we do have. Yep.
Hello, I am Lauren O'Neill of Lorimar Farms. I live on Freemanville Road, 14085, right across the street from us. We moved to Milton because we have horses. You can build a subdivision anywhere. This right here, this is right off 2 dirt roads, so you can ride your horses off property, which is huge that you can do that. I would like to preserve that. People move here. I mean, look at our emblem. It has a horse on it. If we keep putting all of these subdivisions in, especially where horses are, we're not going to have any horses anymore. We have to protect the land in order to protect the horses. We moved here so we could have the horses in the backyard. I had always boarded them before, and it was the first time I could keep the horses on our own land. That is so beneficial, and this is exactly why we came here. So I'm really hoping that they keep this in order. And when Milton first started, they had denied CUP. They said that this shouldn't be allowed in here. So I'm surprised that they are going forth with this now, especially when the land is so valuable to keep horses on. I just think it would be wrong to just let something like this go, because this, you can't find this anywhere else. This is truly a developing town, and I think we should protect it. Thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
that was a good place to end.
Thank you. All right, so we need the applicant to come back up, and then the board to have any comments or questions before we make a recommendation.
I'd like to respond. Is she going to speak first?
If she has a rebuttal, you're free to speak.
Just real quick, if this is not rezoned, it can still be developed with 6 lots. As long as we meet the code for Ag 1 zoning. We've shown that we can do that. Rezoning it just allows us to do it a little bit differently, to not impact the exterior of the property. The goal would be to keep as many trees in the back. We have to put in a detention pond. It's a requirement by the city. It is not one big septic field community. Each lot will have its own septic fields and whatnot to meet health department code. So.
I'd like to respond to the residents' comments, and I'd like to be on record on how I feel about CUPs. I'm a developer. I was building in Alpharetta when Jimmy Phillips was the mayor, and there were 600 people, and your boss was doing my drawings 40 years ago. I dislike CUPs as a homeowner in Milton. I really like them as a developer. They give you a lot of flexibility. You can squeeze in a few more lots, even though these lots are all 1 acre and they meet that requirement. But I'd like to be on record. We used a lot of CUPs for a lot of years in Fulton County. I'd like to say that I'm against any CUPs. And as a developer, we're looking for some subdivision land right now. We'd like to develop. Milton's hot as a pistol. And this is important to our bigger lots, I think. And staff, hear me on this. If we want some 2 and 3 acre lots, the worst thing we can do is use the CUP method of trying to shoehorn those in and solve problems. And it just, and those 3 people back there, the owner has the right to develop it. But let's don't bring back CUPs from the Fulton County days. And I'll be quiet. I will vote to, or comment to tell BZA no CUPs, now or ever. Because it's a way to get more density on problem properties that might stay 9 acres or 3 acres. And as she said, maybe it's a 1 acre and a 3 acre. Anything's better than shoehorning those in and pulling them up to the road. And pulling them up the road is good in urban areas, but I personally like them set back from the road. We're not trying to create a walkable community out here in the middle of Milton. So I'll rest my case.
Comment that this isn't going to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Go to the Planning Commission.
Well, even,
Clarify that.
Thank you.
Items in front of you.
well, then I even really want to be on record because planning is where it ought to be talked about. And we shouldn't be doing CUPs. In my opinion, for everything they said, I agree with all of them, and I'm a developer and I want to develop. But CUPs are just a bad thing to come back. And we don't want to see a lot of CUPs, I don't think. You do one, you do two, you're going to see 10. And I'm out there looking every day for land and got 3 or 4 agents looking. And the things that are left are difficult sites now. They're really hard to develop, and we'd like to see those go 9 acres or 6 acres or 12 acres, 3-acre lots or 2-acre lots. Even though before this was what we wanted, I wanted to see that. And where you got a lot of topo, you just don't build as many houses. There's something for sale now that's 18 acres, and we can put 17 houses on it. But the topo is not going to let you do that. But under a CUP, we could get more houses. So it was a good, sorry, it's your case, but it's just a good time to get on record about the CUPs.
Any other
Don't have to be rezoned with a variance, houses on there like you want?
Well, not like we want, according.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean.
yes, they can still do 6
Yeah,
lots
excuse
according
me,
to code.
you'll have to make another public comment.
But I do want to point
This
out that this is, it's
board's
not,
on the floor.
it's not a developer. It isn't. It's a group of families that's moving here from another state.
Right, and that was gonna be my question. Everybody's referred to this developer,
Yeah,
but
I
it
know.
sounds like it's this group of families.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what's to say that you get down the line, they start building this? I know there's some family members, I don't want to live next door to. And I may
To each his
start-
own.
Right, exactly, start building this, and I say, I bail, I'm out. And now you
Right.
got an empty lot that now you gotta try to do something with. So that would be my only other question about this group of people. This thing probably, if it were to go, wouldn't start construction until maybe first of next year, maybe, or.
It depends on the timeline, but I can tell
Right.
you that one of the family members is already moving here, so he can
Mhm.
be here when everything starts rolling.
Okay.
And I can also tell you that the homes right now would be 5,000 to 7,000 square feet, $1.4 million,
Mhm.
sort of modern farmhouse or country French, something like that.
So the advantage for them versus each person just buying their own acre is to just get in on this one thing and.
Together.
Okay. Because I'm trying to it seems like, I don't want to say this, but it sounds like it's kind of cheating the subdivision. Like, I'm gonna just kind of, rather than do a regular planned subdivision. it's
Right.
kinda-
I think that's Charlie's point, the CUP is
It's
a way of
cheating
doing
us,
that. and
yeah.
Eventually, this becomes resale and.
Yeah.
Right.
And let me ring in again, since I am a developer and I have sued 5 municipalities and one, in Milton, I want to keep reminding you of precedent. You do something for one, it's hard to say no next time. And precedent is critical as we get more and more density, more and more developers, and our land values are going through the roof every day, which is great because of our quality, our schools, and everything she has, her horse farm, and all the things she loves in our nature. And I'm all about no setting precedents.
It would, some against.
Yeah.
Things in, I'm against.
And all I can really add is that what I've turned in meets the requirements of the CUP and the ordinance.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
you've
I,
got-
I,
you-
I would have to say too, for this area, and I would agree with Charlie, CUP is just, I'm not on board with that, frankly. And for a lot of reasons. And one of them is because you can make smaller lots. I mean, I've been on this design review board for several years and I've seen it happen. And I'm not going down that path again. I would never recommend it. The other problem you have, regardless of whether you want to do your 1 acre or whatever you want to do, the problems with folks on topos like that is then they come in and say they want a swimming pool. We're not going to give them that anymore. And you're not going to be able to cite it on the right plan. I can cite, I mean, Scott Reese knows this. I can tell you how many cases have come in front of me and this board before these folks were even on it. And they're trying to fit a house on topo that they can't fit a house on. And then the owner wants a swimming pool, and guess what? can't have it. So we don't want to support that for that reason as well. And if you do the acre lot and you have topo and it's not going to work, you know, the CPAC's looking at making changes to that so that you're not going to be able to do it. So you need to know upfront what you're getting. And it's becoming harder and harder for us to let you provide a zoning variance for that. We're just not going to do it. And because if you want to do this, then you can't have your cake and eat it too, is where I'm headed. So, and that's my comment. So, I mean, if anyone has any other comments, I mean, our recommendation from what I'm hearing is we're all saying we are not on board with CUP. So, but thank you.
Thank you.
All right, final case, final courtesy review is for 3 permits, it looks like. U21-01, BC21-03, U21-02, U21-03, and VC21-04. The address is 2105 Bethany Way, and it's for 3 use permits. So if I could have the applicant come forward, state your name and address.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson and board members. My name is Ellen Smith. I'm with Parker Poe, 1075 Peachtree Street Northeast, Suite 1500, Atlanta, Georgia, 30309. I have the pleasure of representing the applicant this evening with respect to 3 use permits. And this is kind of an interesting one, I think, for you all as a design review board, because there really aren't new structures proposed. But what I can do, and Robin, I don't know, will it wake up? Oh, there we go. I would like to give you just a little bit of an overview. As Robin already said, like the last application, these applications will go to the Planning Commission and then the mayor and council. The property is on Bethany Way, and the aerial before you gives you a little bit of indication just in the location. This property is approximately 18 acres. It's currently 7 tax parcels. Those will be consolidated. They are all owned by one owner. The property is zoned AG1, and it is in the, it's in the rural Milton overlay district. The nature of the use permit applications are, just briefly so that you're hearing it, for 3 use permits. The property currently is used as a single family residence. Ms. Jackson lives on the property. It is a farm winery that opened and started in 2018. Those are both permitted uses, and it's a horse farm. It's an operating farm, has been since the early 1990s. The use permit applications are a result of discussions last year where the applicant sought a change to the zoning ordinance that was going to allow her to sell beer. That application sparked interest in what was happening on site, from children's birthday parties. If you were a student of the horse farm, you'd have birthday parties. There were any number of uses that the city asked about that have been happening on site and have been happening since well before the city was incorporated on site, just like they happen at other horse farms throughout the city. The applications for use permit are to allow those uses that have historically been happening on site to be governed by use permits. And there is a dispute between the property owner and the city as to whether there is grandfathering of certain uses. These applications are to clear that up. So just so you're hearing the background, there are 3 use permit applications. One is for what I would call the children-related activities, right? It's things like birthday parties and the like, Boy Scout, Girl Scout events that are associated with the farm, earning badges for agricultural-related things. That use permit is called under the city's ordinance, agricultural-related activities. There's a separate application for a rural agricultural events facility. Think of that as like the adult version of those activities. So yoga class, book clubs, other events, including weddings, corporate events, that falls under the city's interpretation of that use permit. The third use permit application is for festivals and outdoor events. So historically, there's been an Easter egg hunt at the property every year. It's community sponsored. That has been determined to be an outdoor event or festival. Similarly, concerts, and there have been some music events that the city has determined fall within that category. So just so you're hearing it all, that's the nature of the pending applications. Just to give you an idea, this is an overview. I'm going to scroll if it's okay. There is an existing house. There are existing barns. There are two structures that the applicant is contemplating, not in connection with the use permits, but in connection with the farm winery. One is highlighted, sort of the bigger box in the middle of the site. It would be a new winery facility. Currently, the winery offices are in the basement of Ms. Jackson's home. So the goal would be to move the wine, that's the winemaking, that's the administrative offices, storage for wine. All of that would be moved to a new building. And I do have, to the point earlier, that's really not part of the application. So we don't have elevations, but I do have some examples for you. But also that's really not part of the use permit. So it's a little bit of a funky position to be bringing it before you both or you all. The other thing that is highlighted in a box, it's actually right next to the house, is essentially a picnic shelter. It's purely for rain. Most of these events are outside. It will not have any pervious flooring. It's truly a roof in case of weather to allow people very quickly to run, and then rainstorm passes, they either go back to their activity or they leave. But just to give you that idea, everything else already exists and is not planning to be changed. And this just gives you a few viewpoints if you haven't. This is running from Bethany Way towards Hopewell Road, just to give you an idea of what both the view from the streets are. Also, just to give you an idea that the slope, the topo slopes up from the street. So if you're driving by on the street, there's an existing berm and landscaping and fencing that you drive by. You really don't see any of the improvements as you travel along. This is the view of the primary residence that you can see on the site plan as well. And as you continue towards Bethany, or towards Hopewell, there are two driveways on Bethany Way. This is the second one, the one closest to Hopewell Road. And this is the view, again, still going towards Hopewell. So you can see existing landscaping. There are variances requested with respect to the third use permit. It requires, for example, an 8-foot tall opaque fence to be around the entirety of the property. We've requested that condition be deleted because we think, number one, it's not appropriate for the area. There's already existing landscaping and fencing that meets the neighborhood and the character. So that is one aesthetic or variance that we have asked for in connection with that use permit. Also, just as you round the corner, Ms. Jackson does not own the corner property or the one immediately next to it. She did acquire Mr. Gronholm's property, which is the house that you see here. It's right on Hopewell. It's right at the intersection of Bethany Way, and it's where the new roundabout is going to be located. The city actually acquired right-of-way from Mr. Gronholm right before we acquired his property, the balance of his property. The city has already closed on that. The house that you see here will be removed and demolished. That's part of the city's undertaking with respect to the new roundabout. So we acquired the balance of his property. It's 1.8 acres. That is part of the entirety of the 18 acres that she has. But just so you're hearing what's happening on site in the demolition, that's not demolition the applicant is undertaking. That's demolition in connection with the city's roundabout project that will happen. The proposed new winery building would be on Mr. Gronholm's remainder tract, would meet all requirements of the overlay district, all setback requirements and the like, no proposed variances with that. And this is just, you can see as you continue down Hopewell, you can see Mr. Gronholm's house that will be removed, the balance of Ms. Jackson's parcel, and the view from the street. So the street sits a good distance below the berm where her property line is. And this is just another visual to give you that idea. That, just because you may have heard about it, this is the approximately 700 square foot pavilion. That's where concerts happen when they have happened. There is no plan to remove that, enlarge it, enclose it, do anything with it. You can see the vineyards that have just been planted in the background as well. There are 2 riding arenas. I know that was something that you mentioned have been converted lately into mechanic shops. Obviously, this plan, there's no conversion of those. There are currently 29 horses that are boarded there. They have been, it's a working horse farm and has been for more than 25 years. But just so you're seeing it, you cannot see the structure from the street at all. This is just the back of her home where the current wine tasting room is. Again, the idea is to leave that, convert it back into basement once the new winery building is built. Just in case you're interested, there are various parking opportunities that are currently, some are currently paved. They are right at Bethany Way, where you see the 8s sort of at the driveway. There are other paved or graveled spaces that exist. And this was an effort to just give a visual for where parking could occur. We fully acknowledge, just so you're hearing it, that the parking lot shown along Hopewell would need to meet and would meet all setback and buffer requirements. So that pink highlighting isn't intended to show parking, it's intended to show you where cars can be parked. These would not be permanent striped spaces by any stretch of the imagination. And lastly, this is sort of an idea of the proposed new winery building design. Just also to give you an idea, the visual, and you've just had a long conversation about a barn look. It's not in the front yard. It would meet all setback requirements. And certainly, I think, and Robin and Bob can correct me, the elevations and the design and the plan would come back before you, because that's really not part of the use permit applications, but we put it in so you would get an idea of the visual. I'm happy to answer any questions. I would say, because I know there are folks in the audience, we'll be addressing the use permit or the zoning considerations. I'm happy to answer any of those questions. I know that's not this board's purview. We are having a public meeting on site next Monday at 6:30. Come out, check it out. Come out anytime the tasting room hours are open. Those are available on our website. Happy to show anyone around that has any questions.
Ellen, the first thing that came to mind, I thought this is an exciting event facility, 250 people max with, live music and alcohol. What do the neighbors think about this?
There's a mixed bag, and I think there are some here tonight. I think we have submitted a number of petitions and letters of support, and especially in a pandemic year, the opportunity to be outside and have a glass of wine and enjoy being around people, socially distanced, has been quite lovely. I think that there are some concerns about traffic, the things I always say for any zoning: traffic, noise, and light. So from a noise perspective, the police have been taking decibel readings. Anytime we've had an event in the last year, they hire off-duty police officers. If there's anticipated to be more than 100 people on site, they take meter readings, has not exceeded any of the city's noise ordinance limitations at all. No lighting is proposed to be on or anything like that. And from a traffic perspective, all of the parking, we have asked all customers to park on site. That hasn't been a problem. Police have turned people or instructed to turn people away once we hit occupancy. So I think it's a mix from neighbors as to what they like. The intent really is to provide enough conditions to limit it so that there's a limit on, the goal isn't to turn this into the next Matilda's. That isn't the goal at all.
Foresee being able to accommodate the parking for 250 people?
Yes. They have in the past, and it's not been any issue.
Question is, if you're already doing all of this, what's pulling the trigger to have to get it now? Is it because now you want to do the winery as a accessory?
No, it really was triggered by a desire last summer to be able to serve beer along with winery.
Beer is the thing that's made
That-
this happen.
And that was taken off the table, but as soon as that came up, there was this question about other activities that were happening. It's our position that those have been happening for a long time. The city has a different position, and I think you mentioned on one other case, once you do something for one, you have to do it for all.
What's the new message right there? Oh, no.
And we need that more, especially right now as we're all wearing these masks. And it is an outdoor place for the next 12 months. So we just wanted to voice our support. We're going to have a lot more folks here from just around the community. And I kind of just didn't see what day, when the meeting was for this and kind of got it last minute. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I just want to make sure that the applicant makes it clear that he's really here tonight representing himself and not the Milton Green Space Advisory Board. He said he's a member, but he really cannot represent himself as the Green Space Advisory Board speaking on their behalf because he's only really here as a citizen. I just want to make sure it's clear.
Yes, that is true. You can only speak on your own behalf. You cannot speak on anybody else's behalf when you provide comments. So for anyone who's going to provide a comment, please do so in that realm. Thank you.
Mr. Dudley, yeah, go ahead.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, my name is Bill Garrett. I live at 13450 Hopewell Road, which is on the south contiguous line to Miss Jackson's property. I've been there since 1974, so I was there before she got there. I'll probably be there when she leaves. And anyway, the first thing I want to say is that I believe in a person utilizing their property for the best use that they can, as long as they don't interfere with the other property owners and the general nature of the area there. I also want to point out that I feel like I was a little bit involved with the creation of this city back from the city of Alpharetta and Fulton County. The purpose of it, as you well know, is to maintain an agricultural type of community, one for horses and cattle and the farming type of situation. And if you look at your ordinances, you're going to find that that's pretty much the preamble of the city itself. This situation that Ms. Jackson has had, I'm going to have to say is, over the years, has been mighty fine. She's had a lot of activity going on next door. Never been any problems. She's had people visit, and she's had people there with horses and riding horses and such as that. And there's never been a problem, never been any kind of disruption or even anything to bother me as a next door neighbor, and I would think anybody that's across the street from them or even around them. The problem is in the last couple of months, the number of people showing up there and partying there is increasing dramatically. It has gotten to the point to where it's becoming more noisy, more loud, more disturbing. And it seems like it, in my opinion, and what I'm trying to say to this board is it needs reining in. I'm not saying stop it all because it's been going on, but rein it in to what it used to be. The Article 5, which is one of the issues here brought up to you on the agricultural related activities, 64-1797. It starts out with the intent. And that intent is to allow certain agricultural related activities to preserve the nature of the agricultural area. And that's the intent of it. This application points out, and this is what they're asking this board to do. They want summer and other school break activities and camps to allow 250 people in there. Now, I'm talking about I'm a next door neighbor. I got nothing against kids, but I raised 3 kids, and I'd hate like heck to have to maintain 250. Birthday parties, they want to have birthday parties, maybe, I'm sure for more than one family, but up to 250. Can you imagine 250 kids coming into a birthday party? Agricultural educational events, farm educational events, equestrian educational events, they want that to 35 down, the 35 limit, maybe so. My only question is what are they going to be teaching as far as the agricultural educational events are concerned? I know they are planting grapes, and I know they've been maintaining horses, but as far as agriculture is concerned, I don't think Ms. Jackson or the people that are working with her are farmers. Farm educational events, same thing. Equestrian educational events, I would think she's very qualified for that, as far as talking to people about horses and such that, because she's been involved in it. And I would support her along those lines. But then we get down to art-related events. What in the world, what kind of art-related event is that going to be? The application doesn't say. It's just very general. Here again, we're back to the 250 people limit. The next thing is farm animal petting, 250 limit. I got nothing against petting. That's great. I think it's a great idea to do. But to allow 250 people to be there at one time, don't make sense to me. In other words, the applicant's requests are far too general, and they need to be more specific. Summer school camps, the activities that we've talked about, I think that they should be required to identify these things, identify exactly what kind of activities they're talking about rather than the general rule here. Then we get to the noise. Now, I know from my own experience that most of the arguments and objections to any kind of zoning thing, you can always hear the first thing comes out, it's too much noise or too much traffic. I don't think that's going to fly. It wouldn't if I was sitting in your position. But my question here is, the article, talking about the article now of the city's charter and the city's codes. Article limits the continuous sound levels to 60 decibels and a peak of 75 decibels. Now that sounds great on paper, but can any one of you tell me what is 60 decibels and how loud that is, or how loud 75 decibels is? There's no way. And my question there is Ms. Jackson going to be required, or the people, to come up with a machine that's going to determine that when all these people are out there having a good time and partying? Don't think it's going to happen. So my suggestion there is, and my position there is, that the neighbors, such as myself and the people across the street and around, they're the ones to determine how loud it's being and whether they're being disturbed by it or not. With what went on this past Sunday, I don't know how many people were there. Doesn't make any difference. The people, that's fine. But honest to goodness, this past Sunday, there would have been no way for me to have had some people over from my backyard in a cookout, just as far as a small group is concerned, and carry on a conversation with the amplified music and the yelling and I don't know what all was going on. In other words, what it really boils down to, if you approve this, what you're going to be telling me and the other neighbors to do is when this happens, Mr. Garrett, you and the other neighbors go inside your house, close up your doors, close up your windows, so you won't be disturbed until the party's over. That's not fair. That's not right. And that's not what our city charter and city ordinances call for. It's not an equal situation. It don't work. And the thing I want to point out there is my property and my house is at least 900 to 1,500 feet away from where all this is going on. Now, I've told Ms. Jackson, and I mean it, when we've talked about her vineyard, I've been looking forward to that. And she has doing a lot of work as far as getting ready to, and planting the grapevines and such as that. And I think that's super. I'm all for that. But these parties and this thing of creating a outdoor nightclub, if you will, and that's about what, if you read all this, that they're asking to do, that's about what they're asking you to do. That's not what should be done. So what I'm asking for with regard to this first application, I'm asking that this number of 250 people be reduced down to a minimum. And I'll leave that up to the board to decide what you think is fair and what you think is not fair. I'm thinking something less than 100 anyway. And the only reason I say less than 100, if you've got 20 people and the parents come, that could be 40 in a car and such as that. So it wouldn't take long to get up to 100 people. But I think that's a reasonable figure. I think the music and the band, the recordings, the amplifiers and such as that, that should be limited to, in fact, I don't believe that should be allowed. Each of the applicants requested use specifically identified. I'm asking that what I just mentioned a while ago, what they're asking to be done as far as the teaching is concerned and as far as what they do, I'm asking that they be ordered to specifically identify what they're talking about and how they intend to do it. The other one, Article 64, Section 1842, Rural and Agricultural Event Limit, or Event Facility. The statement on that doesn't make any kind of a statement of intent, but it does come down with 8 standards that the ordinance describes. And it requires a minimum of 5-acre lots, no problem along those lines. No curb cuts, local streets. We got no objection to that. Parking lot construction, space screen, that's fine. No problem with that. Noise level measurements, this we got a problem with. Setback lines, we got no problem with that. Maximum attendance as far as hours determined by the city. I agree with that and being determined by the city. What they're asking for, if you will look at the application, they're asking for this to run almost from 9 until midnight or 9 to 11 or 10 or whatever it is. And it's a 7-day week situation. In effect, all day long and all the time. Maximum attendance hours, that's determined by the city, go along with that. The location and size of the buffers, we got no problem with that. So here again, we're talking about, in this particular instance, you're dealing with the issues of being noise level. And the noise level, what produces the the code says, refers to production of a weighing scale. Now, what that is that determines the level of the noise, I have no idea. Here again, how is that going to be determined? Here again, I take the position that has to be by the neighbors. Loud amplified music, that needs to be stopped. City evaluation duty, that is the city's evaluation. This is the issue 6. That was the maximum attendance and hours determined by the city. That's the city's evaluation and duty to protect the welfare of the community. That's what the code says. Now, if you're allowing an all day, every day, 7 days a week party situation, and if you pass this ordinance or this application as it's asked for, that's exactly what you're authorizing to be done. I'm not saying it's going on now. It's not going on now. And Ms. Jackson has never tried to do anything like this. And I'm not so sure she understands the gravity of the application that her lawyers presented. But if you pass this application, you are in effect rewriting the statute on this thing as far as what it allows and what it don't allow, and you opening it up for a continuous type of situation. Applicants' specific plans want you to include weddings. That's not listed as an approval or a standard in this particular statute. A corporate team building, that's not approved, not an approved use, so you're gonna be approving that. Corporate holiday parties, that's something else. None of this was considered by the statute at all. Yoga exercise classes, book clubs, events not related. Now this is, I love one. Events, and this is what they end up with. Events not related to agricultural, equestrian, or farm winery use. In effect, give us carte blanche. We can do anything we want to. It doesn't have anything to do with what the statute says and the purpose for which this city was created. I don't want to repeat myself. The last section, 16, 18, 12, is festival and events. Here again, no statement of intent, there's just 6 standards. And I think y'all can read those standards. There's no need of me going through this again as far as belaboring the situation. We're still dealing with the noise and the problem there. The time limit, we've already talked about that. And the only thing I'm gonna point out there, in this same thing as far as festival events is concerned, now this was not brought up in the application, but in looking at the statutes and the city ordinances, I found the ordinance that, what was that? 64, 1596 C1. And my point here is, what about the provisions of this? And here's what it says. No more than 2 special event permits shall be granted per year. Now, if you grant what they're asking for now, they won't even have to come ask for the permits. And no permit shall be effective for more than 14 consecutive days for a single event on the same property. Now, if you give this application approval, you might as well strike a match and burn that statute, because you're throwing it out the window. You're saying, hey, none of that applies. That comes down to special treatment to an individual. And I don't think it's fair to the other individuals and the property owners around there. Almost like a closing argument. I'm trying to, rather than keep y'all, I want to finish up with reading you one thing or part of another ordinance. 17.142010 intent has to do with wine country zoning. And that's what we're dealing with, because they're creating a winery here. Picking up in the middle part of it, the purpose of these zones is to encourage agricultural cultivation, vineyards, wineries, equestrian uses, preserve the winemaking atmosphere, estate living, equestrian lifestyle, and protect the area and its residents from incompatible uses which could result in reduced agricultural productivity and increased urbanization within the policy area. Incidental commercial use, such as winery operations and equestrian establishments, shall be authorized only when they are secondary and directly related to agricultural and equestrial operations. I'll point out to this board, if you will look at the application and look at what they spell out and what they ask, they violate every last one of that statute. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Robin, I have a
Oh, I'm
quick,
sorry, you got any questions?
we don't.
Yes, sir.
No, we don't.
I'm sorry?
We do not have any.
Thank you, sir.
Robin, I do have a question of you. This goes to Planning Commission also, correct?
Correct, yes.
And what's the date on that?
Yeah, it is April 28th.
Okay, April 28th, this goes. And what was this gentleman's name?
Mr. Garrett, I believe.
Yes, Mr. Garrett.
You're talking about who just spoke?
Mr.
Mr.
Dudley Garrett.
Do you have what's his first name?
Dudley.
Dudley. Dudley, are you a lawyer?
Bill.
Are you a lawyer? Well, that was one of the best, one of the best speeches I've heard in 2 years. Very organized. That was an excellent speech and very detailed and very organized.
Thank you, sir.
So, thank you. It was very, very informative.
Do we have additional speakers?
No.
Okay. So the applicant can come back up, and if you'd like to make comments based on any of the speaking rebuttal, you'll have some time to do that.
I won't belabor it. I appreciate Mr. Garrett's comments, and I don't necessarily disagree with him. There are many things that the application asks for that are not defined in the ordinance. By the way, they're not defined for any property owner. There is not a definition for any property owner who wants to have a horse farm and have kids draw horses at a birthday party after that. That's art. So part of the application has been dictated by meetings with city staff to say, okay, these are the kinds of things that have happened historically. Let's sit down and define them. I don't disagree with him that it's perfect. You know, it's not. At the same time, what I would say with all due respect is this is the beginning of the zoning process. We've had our CZIM, we've had this meeting, we have a public participation meeting next week, and the Planning Commission in 2 weeks. The initial conditions that were proposed and included with the application, including maximum number of occupants, including all of those things, were taken from conditions from existing facilities that are within the city of Milton. Matilda's is one of those. The conditions that are proposed track Matilda's conditions because that's the only one of those permits that exists in the city. Similarly, Little River Farms. That's another facility. That's a rural agricultural events facility. The proposed conditions track the conditions for Little River Farms. For agricultural related activities, I'm not aware of a single use permit that's been issued by the city. So part of the goal was to put something down on paper for neighbors, for you, for others to respond to. It is not an intent to become the next party facility by any stretch of the imagination. The other thing, just so you're hearing it, there are special events permits in the city. Those are different from the use permits. Of those. So theoretically, you could have 28 days in a year of events. We're not opposed to limitations on hours of operation. on number of people, on sound decibel levels. We didn't make those up. Those are the city's noise ordinance requirements. And we're happy to comply with those, and we're happy to agree to additional use limitations with respect to each of these permit applications. I'm happy to answer any questions also about the aesthetics, about the fencing or anything else. And I appreciate your time and consideration of these applications.
So, Robin, Bob, here's my thought on all of this, frankly. There's, I think Mr. Garrett brought up a lot of very interesting points. I had my own list of concerns as I read through this prior to coming into this meeting. We're trying to do something, it needs to be thought through definitely around how we're gonna put some rules and regs around this moving forward so that it benefits everybody. Because right now I don't think it's benefiting the property owners that are right around there. But I think, as Mr. Garrett said, there's a way to create some rules and regs that, allow everybody to live in harmony. But I don't think we have that right now. And frankly, I feel like that's a pretty long discussion to go through each of these areas. I mean, I've spent time, I like wine myself, like a lot of other people. I've spent time in many wine countries. Virginia is one of them, which we have some similarities here to kind of the Virginia countryside a little bit. We might want to think about how did they set up their regs and kind of look at that and take some advice from people who've been doing it for a lot of years. We haven't. And there's really nobody in this area that's done that. You can go up to Dahlonega, but that's different. Dahlonega is different. Those are very big properties and they're rural. You don't have people with properties right around there. Virginia, you do have a little bit of that. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to look at some of those areas and take some advice. I just think we're going down a path. I don't want to make a recommendation myself. I don't think I have all the data points to do it. And that's just where I'm coming at. I'd be curious to hear from everybody else on the board, but that's where the chairman is, chairwoman, excuse me.
Can I make a couple comments before? So there's a couple things. In our ordinance, a farm winery is allowed by right. And I agree with you. There's kind of new territory. We're pioneering it, right? In our circumstances. And I think that's something that Bob, as well as probably even CPAC, have talked about. We don't have an administrative use permit for farm wineries to kind of oversee what is a farm winery. I think there's been lots of discussions with our city attorney, with Ms. Smith and with Ms. Jackson about talking about what is a farm winery, what constitutes, what's an ancillary use that's part of that. So that's not what we're really looking at. I know it kind of gets into the mix of everything, but what Ms. Jackson is pursuing is the use permits that have been outlined, the 3 use permits, and that's what's to look at. And I don't think it's really the board for the design review board is for a courtesy review to make recommendations. And I think it's a little tough in this situation because there's not a lot of design issues at this point in time. And I'm not saying that you can't make your opinion, but
we've done that for special purpose event areas. Several years ago, we went through that process. Here's where I'm coming from, frankly, on this is, okay, so Ms. Jackson, she's not a wine expert either because she just built this, okay? We're not a city that has running winery events expertise. There's nobody in the city that owns wineries and has been in the business, what I'm telling you, okay? We're not experts here on this. We need to get experts here to put some rules and regs around how to do this. I think you start going out into the wild, wild west, you can get unintended consequences of what Mr. Garrett has pretty detailed walkthrough. My point is, I'm not sending a recommendation on any of these permits because I don't even understand where we're headed with this as a city. And I don't think, help me understand how the planning commission is going to understand either, because there's nobody who's run this business before in the winery business. We don't have experts in this city. We're not Silicon Valley. We're not Sonoma or Napa. We don't have that expertise. So we might want to get it first before we do this. And I personally can't make a recommendation.
I also think there's a broad spread of things going on here. It's really not just about the wine. There's music, there's corporate training events, there's
Exactly.
all
of
goat
it.
yoga, whatever. It's all there. They're all things that have happened in various places. But if you look at this particular patch of land, is a music venue good there? It's a number of different
It
things. It's a
wants to
confusing
become,
mess.
it wants to become a music venue.
And that's my point. It's
True.
there are places that's appropriate, places that may not be.
So I would ring in much more strongly than Laura. They can be a farm winery, no problem. I've been to a lot of farm wineries because I like wine twice as much as Laura. And on the weekends, it's pretty and it's in you go out in nature and there's no bands playing. There's no weddings going on. It's a winery and it's nature and there's some horses maybe and so on and so forth. So to stay on point, I would make the motion to the Planning Commission. I hope the board will, right along Mr. Garrett's recommendation. 250 cars, I want to remind this board that we turned down a daycare at Freemanville and Red Road a year ago because they were going to have 90 cars. And the neighborhoods were bent in half that they were going to have 90 cars at a daycare center. That's little kids going in. That's from 7:30 in the morning till 7:30 at night or 6:30. Now, I want to ring in on 50 years of development. 50 years I lived in Sandy Springs. I'm here for one reason, peace and quiet. No cars. We got enough cars. We're building roundabouts like crazy because we already got enough cars. A farm winery is going to get 20, 30, 40, whatever she's been doing. This man was gracious enough to say no problems in the past. I would recommend none of these get approved. She continues the business she's grandfathered under by right, and she continued to do the business she's done. And concerts, are you kidding me? And I was against Matilda's, but I wasn't on a board at the time. This is in the heart of quiet Milton. And in Milton, with our hills, the noise carries for miles. I don't care what the decibels are. I'm way up Freemanville, and I hear every bit of the noise from the football games, from the high school. And Jeff, would you like this next to you? And 250 cars coming down? When we say we've never seen any cars out there, I just don't believe that. Who on this board would want 250 cars? What neighbor out there wants 250 cars? Who needs concerts all night? And Milton is so neat, but they're going to pour out of Gwinnett and Cobb and Cherokee right into the heart of Milton. And I love England and the narrow little roads and countrysides of England, over hill, over dale, our view corridors, and we don't have the infrastructure for 250 cars or even 90. I want to remind you, precedent. And this lawyer just reminded you of precedent at Matilda's. And I've been harping on precedent for 2 years, and we need to draw the line here, tell the Planning Commission to say no, let her do what she's been doing and whatever right she has, and she's grandfathered, no problem. And it hadn't been a problem, so the neighbor says. To me, this is a frightening approval for Milton. So I'll rest my case.
I disagree just a little bit there. My family's enjoyed the Painted Horse, the farm at Pam for years. And I've never seen anything get out of control at all. I've been to the winery, enjoyed that. I didn't count the number of people that were there, so I can't really speak on how many 250 people is, but it certainly wasn't anything that I would consider out of control at all. I think that the building locations, if we were talking about the building locations first, at least, right? We got off track a little bit. I think for what they proposed in the location of the buildings on the property is, in my opinion, appropriate, if I was giving a comment. Can't really speak to decibel levels and number of people, but I think what they're trying to do here is a big asset to our community in a lot of ways. And I think that they're trying to talk to or have planned to talk to neighbors to see what they can, I guess, agree on. It seems appropriate to me of the steps that they're taking. But as far as the buildings go, the locations, thought everything looked really good.
If I could respond to, you've loved it in the past and it hadn't been a problem, but they are in for three things, as this man has so clearly lined out, that will change what you saw in the past. And I didn't address any, she can build a bigger winery anywhere she wants on the property. It'll have to meet the setbacks and all that. My comments are not about building more wineries, but we've seen their parking plan that shows they can park 250 cars. That's not what she's been all these years. And
think
I
just
agree
because
with
it
you.
hasn't happened doesn't mean it won't begin if there's carte blanche. There's the,
And I have to tell you that they had a giant party last week, and I've heard a lot of people talk about the noise and the traffic that was out there last week. So it is a plus in our community. The way she's been, she needs to stay that. And we're not in Milton trying to increase venues that are going to be served by people all around us. If there was a variance here that said she's going to go up to 100 cars and it's people in Milton, and then it would benefit our community. But I build shopping centers, I build retail, and I know what bars, food, and bands do, and it packs parking lots, and it's a disaster when you put late night, 11 o'clock, music with a big party and alcohol. That's not what Milton's about.
Maybe I missed the, what's the maximum capacity right now? What has the capacity been? Maybe I just completely
there-
missed that.
There hasn't been any maximum capacity in the past. But let me look at what she's proposing. She has 3 different uses. So,
So, Robin, what about the alcohol? Has alcohol been served out there in the past?
so yeah,
Though, just wine, though, just wine.
wine.
Yeah. And then it's not a new winery building where you go, she's making wine, and a big part of her business is selling and bottling wine versus a venue. And we were down on this at Freemanville and a mile or two up there on that house that was in by one of our local residents that wanted to do an event place and just said no.
I mean, this is a classic mission creep, where we do need rules and regs. Say, this can happen. This is an agricultural community, at least that's the brand. So let's make that primary. The buildings work. It's just to control the uncontrollables, traffic and all that stuff. And that, as you said, it is a process. That's where we are right now. But I agree that we need to get busy, look at models like Virginia, how to manage this new, because it's kind of, this is a vibrant market, and opportunities like this are going to present themselves that are going to be contrary to the agrarian spirit of this place. And this is a teachable moment. We need to button up the rules and regs.
Yeah, I mean, we've done the event thing that was from a horse perspective, and then that turned into a wedding venue. And so I've seen these things, how they go. And I'm just saying, you got to be really specific around what we want so that it does not infringe on other property owners' rights to enjoy their property, which right now this is doing that. And so we have to take into consideration all property owners in that area. And it can't, we've got to think about this a little more. I just feel like we're throwing stuff against the wall and let's see what sticks. And I'm not sure we have a really good answer for it. I think, I would like to see maybe the CPAC committee addressing this a little more detail. I mean, there's enough people on that committee where these things can be addressed and talked about and get some input and perspectives, because there's people from all the boards and city council and our residents. So that would be my advice.
I'm personally against it as well. My big issue isn't as much as noise as the outcome of noise. If I'm a neighbor and this continues and I live in his house and I can't go out and enjoy, you know what I'm gonna do? Pick up the non-emergency number. And I don't wanna put any more strain on on police or fire or ambulance or anything like that. They're strained enough. And I see that this is great today, perfect today, but I could see it get there. So my thing is a potential safety issue happening with that, because that's what I would do if I have noise next to me. I'm picking up the phone, and that we don't need to bottleneck those departments.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I hadn't thought about
That is,
police
it's a really
and,
good point.
and the added workload for them.
I'm hearing the majority of folks are not in line with moving forward on this, and really want some more thought around it, is what I'm hearing. But I know there's folks who
Well, I
are
didn't
in.
say that you don't need to have restrictions or talk about, the analysis or get the neighbors' opinions on it. But it was a very fun event. I do think it's an asset to the community. Some of the building proposals that she's outlined here are in touch with what I would want to see in a local winery, local Milton residents could enjoy. There's a lot of good things to it too. So just to slam it, I think it's the wrong way to look at it.
Well, I don't think we're slamming. I think we're saying there needs to be more thought to what you're just talking about and in more detail.
And make sure it stays what it's been, that's everybody's liked. And that's what my concern is. This is a giant generator of revenue. When you get more alcohol, more weddings, more company meetings, I mean, how do we benefit in Milton because they're having 100 people in for a company meeting? Georgia Pacific has 200 sales reps in for a wine tasting party in Milton. How's that doing anything for Milton? And so that's my concern. She's got rights that have been working. I believe you've been there. The gentleman in the back's been there, and it's working. It's working for the kids, petting horses and doing the kid stuff. I'm all for that. But that's not what these permits are for. And this gentleman read you the Right Act and read you the regs, and everything she's doing, as he said, you might as well burn up the regs. And I agree with him 100%. And I'm talking as a resident, and I have no horses, but I bought a horse farm, and I got 18 acres too. And I'd go off the deep end if this was next door to me or within a mile of me. And so I represent the residents and the taxpayers of Milton on this board. And I guarantee you, 90% of them don't want this to go any further and get any bigger. And that's where I'm coming. The barn, the new winery is great. I'm not slamming that. Where they want to put it's fine. It's a neat property. Horses, kids, Boy Scouts, even a wedding if it was limited to 30 or 40 people. But we turned down a daycare center with a very nice lady with a proven track record because she was going to have 90 cars every day. And we turned that down. Precedent. So that's where I'm coming from. And we're supposed to be, again, we all should read the agricultural right to have a winery. That right doesn't say all the things she's now wanting to get. And then, again, because she wasn't caught, and I've done some homework on this before tonight, she was breaking some rules and didn't have rights to do things that were going on that fell out last year. Robin, is that correct?
That's a pretty general statement. I don't know what you're speaking to. You'd have to be more, I mean,
More activities than her AG allowed.
yeah, I think that's what discussion was when everything came out last summer, that there were some issues with some of the activities, correct?
Yeah.
So even with, can I just make a comment about, let's say with the children's items, the agricultural related items. So that's why we've asked her to apply for that, is that she's been doing those activities, and it doesn't seem to bother anybody, but that doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean that in our eyes, or the city's eyes, she's not grandfathered in. There's nothing that's why she's here before you all, to ask for that particular use permit, as well as, so that's a point, as well as the second one, which would be the event, agricultural or rural event facility. And so we went through different things that she did, and you're correct that in our opinion, and the city's opinion, that there were activities going on that were not permitted, and we asked her to come in to ask permission to do it legally.
Right, and just like the gentleman said, she's been doing it for years, and there's been no problem.
I couldn't hear you.
Years, and just like the gentleman said, she's been doing it. My kids have gone to it. I think all of my friends, it's a big general statement, and I have that many friends, but have gone to the farm at Pamelot and enjoyed this. And so, and this gentleman said that it hadn't been a problem for a number of years until recently. And she's applying for a permit to allow her to continue to do some of the things that she's been doing for years and years and years, correct?
Some of the items. She's adding some items
So
that
just to say, I
she
would,
had not been doing. For instance, the event inside outside, which is indoor outdoor, which is the same one that Matilda's had received. So that the main purpose of that is to have concerts, ticketed concerts, where that's the main draw. So that's something that she did not typically do. She has acquired special event permits, the administrative that Mr. Garrett spoke about. That's what happened this past weekend, that we issued a special event permit. She gets 2 per year. And so that had happened also at the end of last year. So that's, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think those are really broad terms, and that's where the problems come is you got to decide, well, number one, I think as a city, we need to say, this is what this should look like, and here's what the stipulations are around it. And it's not like everything but the kitchen sink. That's the problem. Are you an art gallery? Are you a education facility? Are you a winery? Are you an event facility? You really can't be all those things at once and have limitations around those. We've got to decide which ones can we put up with that would work in the community. And that's the problem I'm having.
I think there's a lot, again, broad brush, a lot of those things can be side by side and not disturb anyone. They run well together. Mr. Garrett's comment was that things are getting noisier, rowdier, growing. It's about having it balanced and under some control. And at the moment, it's so broad, it feels like you could start the ball rolling down the hill. It's going to get faster and faster.
And this last weekend, this event was streaming and out there, because I had several people call me about it and say, let's go there. I mean, they called me and said, hey, Milton's got something big and fun. We're in Sandy Springs. Let's go out to this place. Because this last weekend, I know nothing about it. I've never been there. But I know it got a lot of publicity way out of our area, and people call me about going there. That seems like a great place to party. So I want all the partying in Sandy Springs or down on Canton Street in Roswell or in downtown Alpharetta. I mean, we got a lot of places to go. May I make a suggestion that we move on with our other folks and make our recommendations to the Planning Commission? And let's move on.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of recommendations. I think the recommendation is, we need more stipulations around what our The winery is good, but there's got to be, people limitations, there's got to be noise limitations, hours limitations. It all needs to be evaluated in a bigger picture way. And that's, I think, where we're all at. And I don't know what that looks like. I'm not sure we all know what it looks like. We're not saying we disagree with the winery or the children's events, but it's got to be evaluated in more detail. I just don't think you can, if I was in the planning commission shoes, I'm not sure how I'd be making a decision, frankly. But I think that's our representation at this point.
Okay.
All right, we have a final review. It is address 875 Mayfield Road for the medical office. First one's LD. And then he goes back for the final.
If I could say that in the name of time, this final review is about the engineering, not about the architecture, which comes in a few minutes under number 9. And Madam Chairman, maybe if you could ask if there's any opposition, and do we have any comments? The engineering looks great to me, and staff definitely has looked at it. And we can move on to the next category.
So are we, Robin and Bob, are we making a decision on the architecture or the?
No, this is a site plan.
Site
This
plan.
is the
Thank you.
LDP. So
Right.
there's a requirement that every non-residential LDP have your approval.
Yeah, this has been reviewed by the engineers.
Yeah, the engineering. That's what I thought. I was just clarifying for us and everybody else. So does anybody on the board have any concerns about the engineering per se? Because we've seen the engineering earlier, so, I think,
The erosion control plan, they got this.
right,
So I don't really have any problems with it.
from our last meeting.
So if it's the board's pleasure, I'd make a recommendation to approve 875 Mayfield Road, LDP, per the plans that have been submitted.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You still have the hot seat.
Thank you.
Waiting.
Okay. Is that later or is that now?
That's, it's,
Yeah, we've
One
got
item.
one before you,
Okay.
before, we've got another, a new business item, and then you'll come back up.
Good.
Um,
Thank you.
So, thank you, I appreciate that. So our new business item is 2865 Webb Road. It's a courtesy review on the daycare. Can you clarify on this, why we didn't do this under courtesy review? Can you give me a clarification?
Well, you are seeing this first time, so I just wanted to have it under
Okay, so they-
courtesy.
Okay,
We don't know what your comments are going to be. If you are all positive, they don't have to come. They will come back for LDP again, but not for building if you all like it. But if
Okay.
you have comments and if you had to be revised, then they will come back for final review.
okay, all right, very good then. So if the applicant can come forward for the Webb Road daycare?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for your late evening time. I'm Rebecca Calvert, the architect that is helping the client, representing him.
Can you
I'm the
be a little
owner
bit
of-
louder, ma'am?
Yeah.
You need to really speak into the.
I'm the
into
owner of
microphone.
Calvert Design Group. We specialize in childcare centers. We're located at 2950 Cherokee Street in Kennesaw, Georgia, 30144. We have recently updated the renderings and elevate. If you have, I don't think that you guys have received a copy. So if you mind, do you mind if I come and pass them around?
Yeah, that'd be great.
No, it's newer now. It's a few, just some wood color changes.
She printed those out today, so you
Yeah.
printed those out today, right?
Yes, yeah. So, is it all right if I?
Well, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So the changes that we made from what we had initially presented to you was we added a lot of wood colors, a lot of dark stained wood to the trusses and the porch elements. So that will be one of the larger revisions you'll see. We also changed the brick, and the porches that lead out to the stairs come straight down. I'm not sure if that's the version you have or not. So to hold up really quick so that you can see what the actual samples look like, we've already selected the brick that we propose. So this is a sample wall section of what we're proposing.
Can you walk that by all of us right up here
Yes,
and
yes, I can.
let us look at that real close? Slow down for when you get to me. Thank you. I have a quick question on these handrails. They can't possibly meet code because they're more than 6 inches apart.
So we're imagining a wire mesh sandwiched between those X rails. Their wire mesh will be smaller than 3.5 inches because this is a childcare center. The largest opening is allowed to be 3.5 inches, not 4. So it's similar to the porches in the neighborhood next door. They have a lot of 2-story and single stories over basements, and the X railing is used in that same adjacent neighborhood with the mesh sandwiched between.
So it's a wire mesh, right?
Yes, yeah. You're looking at the X railing, right? Like
Yes,
the X
ma'am.
style, yes.
All right, so that's how you meet code. Architecturally, I don't love all the X's, and I'd rather see pickets or something. All these X's get real busy, a smaller rail, and then I don't love these big open spaces between the X's and now seeing a wire mesh. So I didn't like all the X's, too busy, and I'm not gonna like the wire mesh. So would you think about a different handrail?
We can look at the vertical, but our concern is that you won't be able to see the building because we're surrounding this on the 2 large sides. The railing, because you've got to have no more than 3.5 inches of an opening, those pickets are going to be a lot closer than in a residential railing, which is probably what you're envisioning. And so you're going to have kind of 50% solid, 50% void, as opposed to like a 30% solid and a 60% void, if that makes sense. So we were looking for a way to open it up so that you could also see if there was a child there on the sidewalk area. So as you're approaching up the uphill approach in a vehicle, that you would be able to visually see a child on the other side of the railing and know whether or not you needed to proceed with more caution than usual. Now, that sidewalk area is required for fire egress, which is why it's there. So we have to have it. It's not really going to be a daily sidewalk for regular use, but we do want it to be open in case there is somebody coming out of that area, that they can be seen easily.
How do you meet handicap with these stairs and not a ramp or handicapped access? If you had a handicapped child.
That actually is a fire egress stair coming out. So this street front is not the business front of the building. Because of the long, narrow geometry of the site, you drive up next to the building, park in the rear, and the main front entrance, which is handicap accessible, is in that rear entrance. So when you look at the rear images, it's just like a second front. It's two fronts. The street front to give street presence and to be welcoming to the community, but the actual main entrance is at the rear of the building.
Talk to me about the roof color. In all your renderings, it looks orange to me, so I don't like the roof color.
I don't either.
Yeah, the roof tone is a brown tone, as you can see in the sample down below in front of the podium. It is kind of a rustish color. We were just keeping with the neutral and the warm tones as opposed to doing a black or a gray.
Yeah, I hear it, our chairwoman too, that
Yeah,
So I-
you
I
know, the
just-
rendering doesn't do it
do you
service,
have a
you know, you're
sample of
kind
the-
of
do you have a
limited.
sample of the roofing with you?
Yes, yeah.
We see that?
It's too monochromatic with the colors.
Mm-hmm.
Much brown. And the brown color, I don't know, with the neighborhood that's right next to it, the Wheelan, they have some really nice color choices. It'd be great to pull in one of those colors from over there, because I really think they did a really nice job on colors over there. It's very eye inviting, and I think that might help the look on that, and especially getting a different roof color. I think I'd rather see something pulled out of there, because I think that just enhances that area and looks more consistent with that nice neighborhood right there. And then even, I would say, if you go with more of a little bit lighter color, you might want to do a little bit lighter on the brick color. It just feels very dark. This feels kind of, to me, people are kind of getting away with the dark colors. They're going a little bit lighter. This feels really dark again to me.
Yeah, I do think that it's a result of the rendering. If you look down at the actual brick selected, you'll see that it actually has white in it or white on it. It's just the shading of the trees on the rendering have kind of grayed out the whole building overall.
There's still a lot of orange in there, though. Is that what you were saying? Yeah, it looks, which is probably what I'm picking up. I think it's making it everything brown and orange in the roof and do a little bit too much.
Robin, does this come back before us again, where we get to talk about it again, or what's the situation here?
The intent was, when we received the packet, we had the rendering, but the elevations, the line drawn elevations weren't matching the colored version of the elevations. So we said we didn't feel comfortable bringing it to you as a final, because we wanted everything to be consistent, although the applicant has given you the consistent, updated, detailed drawings. So it's up to you all which direction you want to go. You could give them more direction or ask them to revise things and come back, or you could, make a decision tonight. It's up to you. But we weren't comfortable at the point of what we had to call it a final when we had the submittal.
Yeah, the ink was still wet at 6 p.m. tonight, right? Like, yeah.
So I'm in agreement with Laura, it's just, there's things I'd like to see different and a little richer and a little more wow factor to it. It's not your materials, brick and siding. Are these shingles in the gable on the front?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so you got
Yeah.
some shingles and siding, so that's all good. The windows are nice. The cornice above those windows is real nice. I really like that. That's an added expense, but it's very nice. Love to see a different handrail and not see all the wire. And if that handrail's doing what it's supposed to do, not going to be a kid in the street. So if there's a kid in the street, there's bigger problems in the handrail. And so
That's-
I'd like to see
yeah.
that handrail not be so many X's around that building. I mean, an X is more powerful in design than a picket. And when those X's go, X's all the way around the building. What's everybody else? Reed, what do you think?
X's, I think it probably looks a little bit more like a child's place with the picket. Sort of a, call it a
It's a, yeah,
big
that's what I'm
fence
calling
or, you know, big squared,
yeah, that's what
square
I'm
sort of
calling
fence. I
the
think
mesh.
7 Acre actually has that. They don't have the X's, but they have sort of the fence, and it's a really cool look. So that doesn't really bother me as much, but I don't
Yeah, I
So-
think
mind the darker
I'm going to
colors
roll
either.
with whatever the board wants to do on calling this a final or making any changes. I agree with Laura.
I think more on the, I think the color is where, we're like, if we could pull kind of a little bit of a lighter, happier tone from the neighborhood next door, including the roof color, I think I'd probably be much happier. I mean, I like some of the design features, like everybody else has said, so.
Mhm. Yeah,
I think the color is just looking very drab.
yeah.
And knowing the neighborhood next door is a happy neighborhood, so it'd be nice to have that look kind of consistent.
So to make sure that I understand you correctly, are you asking us to move away from neutral tones into more of a colored building?
Don't move away from what
Yeah, the orange browns, I think, are just not working.
Okay.
maybe a little bland.
I'm looking at pictures of the houses that are further down, and I see some that are slate and some that are a pale, pale yellow, and some that have the lighter gray. And I'm not saying you got to use all of those colors, but something that blends with those, I think I think that's where we're headed. It's just something that's comparable to the houses that are right up the street
Okay.
from it. And they have different kind of handrails. They have balconies, and some of them have X's, but then there's some that don't, that maybe something that would get away from the X.
Yeah, because then it's, I mean, then you're driving down the street and you go, oh, kind of a consistent theme.
And you've been waiting all night, so you've heard this. We're really, Milton's unique. I'm new here, and I came here because of what Laura and Reed and all the rest of them that have been here a long time have created. Now the whole world wants to come here. And we're seeing all kind of proposals that aren't quite as consistent with what made it special. So I think we're all very aligned, and so is the council, with working hard to make that, and this is our city architect's term, the Milton brand, the Milton look is unique. It's certainly in Johns Creek or Roswell's red brick. And so that's a really special thing, and it's driving value. The realtors will tell you the values are going through the roof. So you've heard from them, and I agree with them, and we'd love you to come back and see if we can't get closer to the Milton brand and that warmth and more, as Laura says, brighter, a little, and bright's a dangerous word.
No,
Whatever's the
we
right
had
word.
a cream-colored farmhouse going with a whitewash brick, but we were encouraged to do something more dark and dramatic.
Who encouraged you to do that?
We met with the city architect, Bob, and it was just, and to his credit, he was correct in that it was all very pale up against each other without enough contrast. And so we were trying to add contrast by adding in the darker wood as opposed to the whiter wood in the earlier version, and add in a browner brick with a more tan colored siding to give that contrast from the windows to the siding to the brick.
Well,
I
let's
like, I
vote.
like the darker wood. I'm not keen on the, on the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bob, what you think? Because I'll always defer to you have a license and we don't.
No, it's good. I like all your comments. I mean, initially it came in very pale. It was very washed out. I think it needed more hues, more contrast to it. So it gives the building a little bit more substance and body. I do agree with the board, with the rendering here and the things that the mustard looking roof is probably needs to be, further investigated. I think it probably behoove you to, just take the board's advice. We'll come back. We'll take a look at this again. Try to put some better color palette together, and then we can bring it back in front of them next month. And because I think overall looks that the massing of the building is looking much better than it originally came in. They done a lot of work on the massing. And we'll look at the railings. I think the color palette and the railings really focus on.
For one, I like your columns and your brackets, but you don't, and this is Laura made me look closer. All these browns, you don't even see those columns and those nice brackets popping out because it's all just brown. It fades away and it's kind of in the shadow of the building.
Yeah, those columns are really, I really like that look.
I
think
do
it's
see your
nice.
point, yes.
Yeah.
But if you accented them, you'd see them better.
All right, well, thank you very much for your feedback.
Thank you. All right, so our final old business is we have 875 Mayfield Road, the building and architectural for the medical office.
May I have a lead in here that we touched base on earlier?
Yes, go ahead.
Let me give the board, especially with the late hour here, some thoughts. This applicant has been great, and Mike has been great to work with. I'm very concerned about this corner. I go by it every day, like all of us probably do, but I live on Freemanville. And so this corner is a 50-year decision. We talked about that last time. And so they've been great to listen and work with us. And it was pointed out that they hadn't done some of the things on the demolition, which was document the history of 875 Mayfield. That's in your package. They've done a great job. I think the record should show they met those obligations, and now it's in the city's custody, which isn't what they're doing necessarily, but it eventually gets to a demo, which they want to get. So thank you for doing that. That cleans that issue up. Next, you'll see their drawings, and they've worked really hard. Reed's input to us, and we've met 2 or 3 times on the phone. We've met 2 times together. Reed's input to us was make it look more 2-story, and they've worked on doing that. And they've really been great. I mean, they're drawing and working and working. And again, with the late hour, 50-year corner. So I still wasn't happy, and I have a good friend who's did my barn, and I think is the greatest architect in Milton, and that's Tim Bryan. So I hired Tim and paid him $800 to come up with these drawings. And I think he is great with the Milton brand. And I did that as a citizen and as a board member because I just wanted more advice and ideas. And he used to sit down there, but he's left us. And we could have done all this in meetings. So I submit this to the board for your review and discussion. I talked to Mike earlier today, and don't like the eyebrow, and he's come a long way. He's getting massing, which Reed wanted, better materials. But I would ask y'all, since this is a short period to the next meeting, since we're halfway through the month, if you would take a deferral, and we want to hear the board's input on these 2 sets of drawings. But at the end, we still have another week. You were on vacation. We all were gone on spring break. We just didn't get together for another couple of rounds to get this thing to where it's wow. And also, folks, it's a 1-story building. which is hard to work with, and it's 3 feet in a hole. And then with form-based zoning, it's pulled right up on the street, down in a hole 3 feet. It's hard to get great architecture with those problems. And they really are the most, I get a little frustrated with Scott, and nobody wants to spend any money. These guys are spending money to get us happy. Their theory is, if we get them happy, we're gonna get approved. And that, I believe in that theory. If you do good work, cities will generally get you approved. And so I'd like for you to work on it 2 more weeks. And I'm going to make a postponement. Now I want to ask the board to tell us what they think of where we are tonight. They may want to approve it.
I thought this was incredibly better than your last version. Like, really well thought out. I agree with Charlie. It's a big corner, and it's a big corner for us to try to, be a part of this for a long time. But this was awesome compared to the last one, compared to just the flat roofs, and there's some dimension here. Does sort of tie into some of the other buildings in Crabapple. I mean, this could be an exquisite horse farm in the middle of Milton, and really is, I applaud you guys for the work that you put in since the last meeting.
Yeah, I would agree too. I mean, it looked very different, in a very good way, actually.
The inspiration behind it, if I could just take a second, was, we talked about 2-story retail, what should we see when we see that corner? Should it be 2-story retail? And that really stuck with me, but I had to do a lot of thinking about that and thinking about what's around that corner. You have residential on the east and the south, you have the library on the west, and all of the retail and the taller buildings and the mixed use seem to be on this side of Mayfield. So I thought, what's appropriate for that corner? And to me, I put the word on the site plan that said campus, because to me, I thought that might be an appropriate place for an institution or a church or something like that on that corner, that side. So the idea of the corner plaza that backs up the circle, the traffic circle, and the horse sculpture, that should have trees, that should have green space that follows the curve of the street. And then the buildings should, recede back from that corner. And we talked about trying to raise the E-lines and get more varied roof lines, and those are the inspirations for this proposal. And to bring the materials from that house, the granite, into that vertical corner element, so you'd really see that, bring those roof pitches back that are in that house, and reuse that granite, reuse those materials on both buildings. More permanent materials. We got rid of all the horizontal siding. We're going to do some painted brick. The colors we've selected look fantastic with the granite. I'd be happy to show those if we're that far along. So,
Could the board
if there are
bring
any
in,
other comments, we'd be happy to.
could the board bring in on the colors? We weren't happy with those the first time. They're at yellows and the granites and the whites, and would you make sure you're happy with that?
I actually like the color. I like something that's a little bit different, because we have so much white. Everything's white.
And we're across the street from a giant 2-story white library.
Yeah.
These are the actual color
I like
samples
the
are here.
pale yellow. I wish you had almost brought that the last time so she could have seen with the daycare. That's the color that I was talking about, that yellow.
And then they've got black metal raised roofing. He's introduced that to the building on those second stories, which is expensive and very Milton.
Nice.
So we would all be happy with his color palette materials. Okay, so that's gotten done.
Everybody saying yes? It's hard to tell.
I know, that's why I nod.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
And I appreciate, Charlie, I appreciate the time you spent with us, with the board, trying to get these things worked out.
And by the way, when we're sort of uncertain about some things, these are medical buildings, they've got tenants. It's going to be a very solid asset for Milton with the use they've got medical. and the tenants they've got. So it's really a solid investment for our city.
Actually, if you don't mind, my name's Charles Benson, so my wife is a physician. So it's Samantha Benson, and she's been in Johns Creek since 2005. So we were trying to get a little closer to home. So, so that's kind of why, she's a community physician.
So Charlie, what are we doing with?
There's some features that we'd like to work on a little bit more, that are taking a few things from Tim and his suggestions, which just as an independent consultant to give us some advice. And I think, Mike, in a week or so, in another meeting, we can improve on some things. How do you all feel about the eyebrow? I didn't like the eyebrow. That's not Milton. Maybe the city's architect can ring in on the eyebrow.
From what they've submitted, based on the form-based code criteria, it does meet the character and the requirements of the form-based code. The form-based code says you have to have a large mass as the main element, and then submasses on either side. So all that type of criteria is being met in their submittal. The eyebrow is a detail that we can easily eliminate if the board wants to eliminate that. I don't think that's going to be a pivotal part of his presentation, although that code does allow those types of elements. The dormers that are on there. And I think the applicant was trying to, it's a medical facility, was trying to keep it looking somewhat.
Hey, Bob, I'm like Reed. I can't hear you. Pull that
Okay.
mic closer.
I
to
think
you.
he was trying, the applicant, it's a medical facility, and I think he was trying to keep it looking somewhat commercial. Where I think, if I had to critique Tim's drawings, show hip roofs, which we don't really, they're not really permitted in form-based code in Crabapple. And the fireplace chimneys kind of give it more of a residential style look. I think when the applicant came in, if I could speak on his behalf, they said, Bob, it's medical. We're trying to keep it somewhat looking kind of corporate, but yet we want to fit into this kind of character in the area of that corner. So I think that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to blend in some of the stone on the walls to try to keep the old stone house legacy sort of incorporated into this building.
Yeah, we
Those were just
increased
some of the
that.
things that
We increased that because you said that last month, and they've been gracious enough to add a lot more stone.
Yeah, I think they have, right? I think they've done a lot of that.
What do you think about the louvers instead of windows? The louvers bothered me, the eyebrow and the louvers bothered me rather than windows to create that second floor where the granite is.
Yeah, I think his second floor is really fake. I mean, he could replace the louvers with windows and just paint the back sides of the windows and you wouldn't see through them. I don't think that, again, that
The
would.
louvers say to me, is there a big fan or duct system, or what's going up? Is there HVAC behind the louvers?
To me, it was more of a belt, you see a tower, you see
Yeah,
a
that's
tower
what
with
it might be, like an old
windows,
English tower or
and you'll
something.
see, the louvers where the bells might be or something. So that's what, I was trying to make that read as a tower.
But they
You are
don't have
correct.
bells in medical, so.
No bells.
We're-
It's true, the original sketch I showed you had windows instead of the louvers.
So Bob says we're maybe a little too residential, and so I hear him. And I don't love the eyebrow because I don't see that in Milton. And love the stone. We wanted more stone last month because Bob and staff brought up the stone and the history. So we've gotten that done. So my big issue this time, if the board wants to try to move to approving this, is to eliminate the eyebrow brackets, they're too far apart. It's like you were only able to buy supply chain problem 4 brackets. And the distances are too far on those brackets. And I'd double the number of brackets and find a couple more places where you might put those brackets. I like what you did with the signage because we don't want you putting up signs out there all over the place without us knowing it. And so you've shown us your signage.
Ask a question real quick, Charlie. Is there a sign requirement size or what? Because I'm being asked, you know, what.
The staff in the city will have to tell you that.
As far as your signage, so signage is a separate application when you come in. It's a,
On the building though itself?
on the building, it's a separate application, and we can work with you on that.
Because I'm being asked that.
The only thing is it does, the form-based code does require that it be lit. It can't be backlit. It has to be lit the way you have it with lights shining down on it or up on it.
Okay. I guess that they're just wanting to know.
Yeah, and the material of the sign is rustic too. It's, so, and then if you want a sign when you enter, you're allowed one of those. But again, it's the Milton standard of crabapple. It's a specific type of material and style.
Thank you.
We're getting there. I'm going to make a motion to approve and then ask all of you to give me your input on what you would do different. Because I think the board and the city's architect likes where we are. So are you good with that if we go ahead and get him done? And
Be good with that, yeah.
all right, I'm going to make a motion to approve 875 Mayfield Road, building and architecture for these medical office buildings with the understanding, and I'm very open to change when I make my motion, that we eliminate the eyebrow, that we double the number of brackets to a more appropriate distance, that we change vents to windows with the mutton pattern that we would find that's on the ground, but the same square size of those windows. I would like a little porch like you've been doing over here on the on the parking lot, south elevation. There's a door with a light above it. I'd like to see a little roof there. You with me?
Yes.
Okay, it's on the parking lot, south elevation. There's an exterior door without a roof over it.
That's the sprinkler closet.
All right, well,
Yes, sir.
it's a door to, then, you know, it just needs to be more important,
Okay.
even though it's just a sprinkler closet.
Sure.
And it gets a couple more brackets. It gets some brackets, it gets some relief, it gets the Milton brand out there, whatever that is.
I just want to make sure I picked that up. So it's the parking lot, south building elevation, and it's the door that's with the light over it.
Correct.
You're looking at like some sort of covering.
So you agree with that covering?
I did right here. This, yeah, I do agree. I just want to make sure I get the right one.
Okay. So those would be in my motion and the changes to these drawings. And then we would expect staff to pick these up when they permit it. And we loved your colors. The board approved your color palette, which Mike did all on his own. He said, what do you think about color? And I said, that's not my area. And I like the colors. We did say with the townhomes, the library, and everything that's happening, as you pointed out, another white building wasn't it. So the colors are good. So there's my motion, and I'm open to any changes or additions or whatever the board's pleasure.
Well, I probably should have said this before, but I really like the eyebrow.
Well, then let's
I
take.
forgot about it from the time you just made the motion.
Thank goodness Jeff's here. We got 7 votes, and if it's 6-1, I'm good with that. It's whatever the board's pleasure is.
I put a cross through it, but it's an eyebrow.
How many of you like the eyebrow?
Usually they put like that.
What would go in its place?
Nothing. The idea, we got all this going on now, and it's just sitting there.
Put your
I
hand
could
over
be
it.
swayed either way, to be honest. Like, Reed, do you like it because it's a feature there? It would otherwise be plain, or you just like it
Add a
because it's
little
whimsical?
flavor there, I'm not an architect, I'm just looking
Keep
at
it?
these things.
You'd keep it.
I keep it.
That's two keep it.
I'll keep, I think it would look blank without. I like the idea of replacing the louvers windows on the tower. And I agree with the south parking lot door, make that look a little nicer. I think keep the eyebrow.
Jeff, where are you?
I don't think it's against the Milton look or brand, and I can live with it. I think it complements.
Right, so my motion's been corrected to keep the eyebrow.
Oh,
And I accept that. I accept that change.
It's a good compromise.
I second the
I'm-
motion.
Okay, yeah, I'm going on with everyone else, so that's what I'm doing. Okay, so we have a
Keeping the
second.
eyebrow.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Great job, you two.
Great job. Yeah, it looks really good.
In the years ahead, Milton will appreciate your trouble and time. You really did a good job.
And we are officially adjourned. Officially adjourned.